Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Paramahamsa, Pri Vradgata, Justo, Tarasutta, Sri Srimad, His Divine Grace, Shiraboy, Charanaravinda Bhakti Vedanta Swami, Sri Prabhupada ki, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki, Skandiditi, Foundacharyas, Divine Grace, Sri Prabhupada ki, Brahmacharya, Sri Haridas Thakur ki, Salva Tabakta Vrinda ki, Harinam Sankirtan ki, Grantara Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Sanika Gaur Kimanam. All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru, to Sri Gauranga, all glories to Sri Prabhupada. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurandalitam Jena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Bhishtam Stapitam Jena Bhuktale Swayam Rupa Gadamayam Dadati Swadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Juta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavam Sya Shri Rupam Sahajagatam Sahagana Raghunatan Vitam Tvam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Sakanvitam Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostite Tapta Kanjana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sriti Pranamami Hare Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyasya Kripa Sindhu Vyayavasa Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraya. Before reciting this Srimad Bhagavatam, which is a very means of conquest, let us first offer respectful obeisances unto Narayana, Supreme Personality of Godhead, unto Nara Narayana Rishi, the supremest human being, to Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nasta prayasya badreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Tamashloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki. By regularly hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam and by rendering a service unto the pure devotee, all that is troublesome within the heart becomes destroyed practically to nil, and loving devotional service unto the Supreme Lord, whose praise with transcendental songs becomes established as an irrevocable fact. Idam Bhagavatam Nama Puranam Brahmasamitam Uttama Sharitam Sakara Bhagavan Rishi Nishreyasaya Lokasya Dhanyam Swastayanam Maha. The Srimad Bhagavatam, known as the Grantaraj, the king of all Vedic literatures, is the literary incarnation of God. It is compiled by the incarnation of God as Srila Vyasadeva. It is meant for the ultimate good of all people. It is all successful, all blissful, and all perfect. Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Sri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Sarabhyaya Namaha. Om Sarabhyaya Namaha. Om Sarabhyaya Namaha. Om Sarabhyaya Namaha. Mukam karoti vācharam tvāṃ gom nāgāyate girim. Yakripātamaham bande Sri Gurum Kinataranam. Yakripātamaham bande Sri Gurum Kinataranam. Hare Krishna. Welcome to our Bhagavatam class. Continuing canto number 2, chapter 2, entitled The Lord in the Heart. And the text today is 20. No, yesterday we read 2. 19 and 20. 19 and 20. We read 19 and 20. So then it's text 21. Yes. Okay. I heard 22 somehow. So text 21. Tasmad Bhrubor Antaram Unayeta Niruddha Saptayatano Anapekshaha Stitva Muhuratardham Akuntha Dristir Nirbhidya Murdhan Visrijat Param Gataha. Tasmad Bhuvar Antaram Unnayeta Niruddha Saptayatanon Napekshaha Stitva Muhurtardham Akunta Dristir Nirbhidya Murdhanna Visrijat Param Gataha Tasmad Bhuvar Antaram Unnayeta Niruddha Saptayatano Napekshaha Stitva Muhurtardham Akunta Dristir Nirbhidya Murdhanna Visrijat Param Gataha Tasmad Bhuvarantaram Unnayeta Niruddha Saptayatano Napekshaha Stitva Muhurtardham Akunta Dristir Nirbhidya Murdhanna Visrijat Param Gataha Tasmad Bhuvarantaram Unnayeta Niruddha Saptayatano Napekshaha Stitva Muhurtardham Akunta Dristir Nirbhidya Murdhanna Visrijat Param Gataha Tasmad from there Bhruvo of the eyebrows Antaram in between Unayeta should be brought in Niruddha by blocking Sapta 7 Ayatanaha outlets of the life air Anapekshaha independent of all material enjoyment Stitva by keeping Muhurta of a moment, ardham, half, akuntha, back home, back to Godhead, drishtihi, one whose aim is targeted like that, nirvidya, punching, murdhan, the cerebral hole, visrijat, should give up his body, param, the supreme, gataha, having gone to. Translation and purport by Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki. Thereafter, the bhakti yogi should push the life air between the eyebrows, and then blocking the 7 outlets of the life air, he should maintain his aim for going back home, back to Godhead. If he is completely free from all desires for material enjoyment, he should then reach the cerebral hole and give up his material connections, having gone to the Supreme. Kindly repeat after me. Thereafter, the bhakti yogi should push the life air up between the eyebrows, and then blocking the 7 outlets of the life air. He should maintain his aim for going back home, back to Godhead. If he is completely free from all desires for material enjoyment, he should then reach the cerebral hole and give up his material connections, having gone to the Supreme. Report. The process of giving up all material connections and returning home back to Godhead, the Supreme, is recommended herein. The condition is that one should be completely freed from desire for material enjoyment. There are different grades of material enjoyments in respect to duration of life and sensual gratification. The highest plane of sensual enjoyment for the longest period of life is mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita 9:20. All are but material enjoyments, and one should be thoroughly convinced that he has no need of such a long duration of life, even in the Brahmaloka planet. He must return home, back to Godhead, and must not be attracted by any amount of material facilities. In the Bhagavad Gita 259, it is said that this sort of material detachment is possible to attain when one is acquainted with the supreme association of life. Param drisva nivartate. One cannot be freed from material attraction unless he has complete understanding of the nature of spiritual life. The propaganda by certain class of impersonalists that spiritual life is void of all varieties is dangerous propaganda to mislead the living beings into becoming more and more attracted by material enjoyment. As such, persons with a poor fund of knowledge cannot have any conception of the Param, the Supreme. They try to stick to the various They try to stick to the varieties of material enjoyment, although they may flatter themselves as being Brahman realized souls. Such less intelligent persons cannot have any conception of the Param, as mentioned in this verse, and therefore they cannot reach the Supreme. The devotees have full knowledge of the spiritual world, the personality of Godhead, and his transcendental association in unlimited spiritual planets called Vaikuntha Lokas. Herein, Akunta Dristi is mentioned. Akunta and Vaikuntha convey the same import, and only one who has his aim fixed upon that spiritual world and personal association with the Godhead can give up his material conditions even while living in the material world. Die before you die. I think only devotees understand that. Die before you die. Why do you speak like that? Die before you die. We'll give purport. Continuing with the purport. This Param and the Param Dhamma mentioned in several places in the Bhagavad Gita are one and the same thing. One who gives, one who goes to the Param Dhamma does not return to the material world. This freedom is not possible even by reaching the topmost loka in the material world. Param Brahma, Param Dhamma, Pavitram, Paramam Bhavam. Purusham Sasatam Vidyam Adi Evam Ajam Ibum. So this Param Dhamma, as Prabhupada mentions, actually the word Dhamma and the word Param, they come separately and they come together as well, many times in the Vedic literatures. Param Dharma, Savai Pumsam Paro Dharma, Param Dharma also. There are certain words that are key words to unlock the mysteries of life. One last paragraph, short paragraph here to the purport. The life air passes through 7 openings, namely 2 eyes, 2 nostrils, 2 ears, and 1 mouth. The life air passes through 7 openings, namely 2 eyes, 2 nostrils, 2 ears, and 1 mouth. Generally, it passes through the mouth at the time of an ordinary man's death. Passes through the mouth. But the yogi, as above mentioned, who controls the life air in his own way, generally releases the life air by puncturing the cerebral hole in the head. The yogi therefore blocks up all the above mentioned 7 openings so that the life air will naturally burst forth through the cerebral hole. This is the sure sign of a great devotee's leaving the material connection. So the process, how to disentangle ourselves from the material world is being stressed here. The need to become disentangled and the process as well. Understanding about the param, just like in the first 2 verses of the 14th chapter, that word param is there also. param bhuya pradakshami jnanam jnanam uttamam yajgyadva munaya sarve param siddhim ito gataha. Gataha, the word gataha is also good. Param siddhim. So param siddhim for the devotees is going back home, back to Godhead. Param siddhim is like Kunta. Kunta and Vaikunta or Akunta, where there is no, yeah, anxiety. Kunta means anxiety. Akunta Dristi, yeah. Akunta proper translates as back home, back to Godhead, which means, yeah, Vaikunta. And Dristi, one whose aim is targeted like that. So it means that only those who are very fixed, who have as their primary aim in life to go back home, back to Godhead, uh, will actually stand chances of achieving their goal. And the second verse, just pull it up here. Second verse of the 14th chapter is further explaining 14:2. So 14:1 we just were reading a few seconds ago, or reciting the verse. Param bhuya pravakshami, I shall now declare to you this supreme wisdom. Krishna is telling to Arjuna, the best of all knowledge, knowing which all the sages have attained the supreme perfection. And the second verse, idam jnanam upasritya. Idam jnanam upasritya means taking shelter of this knowledge. Mama sadharmyam agataha. Very nicely explained here. Mama sadharmyam. What is sadharmyam? Sadharmyam means the same nature as the Lord. So this verse translates as follows. Well, I'll read the whole verse. Idam, this is 14:2. Idam jnanam upasritya mama sadharmyam agataha sargepi nupajayante pralaye na vetanti cha. Which translates as follows: by becoming fixed in this knowledge, one can attain to the transcendental nature, like my own. Thus established, one is not born at the time of creation or disturbed at the time of dissolution. So this is what awaits those living entities who are fixed and resolute in determination to achieve their final destination, which is to go back home, back to Godhead, by by attaining the same nature. What is it? What is the nature of the Lord? The nature of the Lord is transcendental nature. In other words, just like when Krishna Janma Karma Samidibhyam, the Lord's appearance and activities in the material world, they are Dibyam, transcendental. One who takes up to the process of devotional service, then he gradually becomes more and more, Prabhupada would say, Krishnized, spiritualized. And the more we are spiritualized, then we are less and less to the point of no longer being affected by the uh, modes of material nature. What are the two end results for someone who actually reaches that developed, perfected level of consciousness? Yeah. The question is, what happens when one develops that prema? Two major things, which are constantly afflicting the conditioned soul. In other words, when one develops prema, that means he's no longer. He's not affected. Yes. So that is one of the important results of those who actually completely absorb themselves in such devotional life, spiritual activities, in particular devotional activities, that they transcend the modes of material nature. By transcending the modes of material nature, therefore, we are not forced to again come back in the material world, isn't it? It is the modes of material nature uh, in the form of different types of material desires, material attachments, material conceptions, material relationships, attachment to. It's not that we should not have material relationships, but we should not be attached to those material relationships. We have this material body. We're here in the material world. We're dealing with material situations, people who are having these, but our consciousness needs to be purified so that we are not entangled by such contacts, such interactions, such relationships. So that is the first very important, result, that one will transcend the mode of material nature. So that's why in the beginning of the first canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, second chapter also, second chapter, what is the title of that chapter? Divinity and Divine Service. Very wonderful verses that explain scientifically the process of bhakti. And beginning with the verse, Srimvatam Swakatha Krishna Punya Sravana Kirtana Vijantasto Yabhadrani Vidunuti Suritsatam. That by regular hearing of Krishna Katha, not only hearing Krishna Katha during Bhagavatam class, but also speaking Krishna Katha after Bhagavatam class. Then by this connection, this contact, this constant endeavor to maintain that contact or connection, then the purification takes place. Sinpatam Sakatha Krishna Punya Sravana Kirtana Vidyantasto Yabhadrani. The abhadras, unwanted things within the heart, they become cleansed away. So then it goes on to explain how one who endeavors in this way will gradually rise above the two most difficult of the three modes of material nature. What are the two most difficult? Yes, rajas and tamas, mode of passion and mode of ignorance. So that's why if one is not hearing such instructions, one is not knowing about transcendental subject matters, one is simply heavily influenced by these lower modes of material nature, which is the condition of the majority of people in Kali Yuga. So at least those who are practicing devotees, they have very quickly actually the ability, the possibility to rise to the mode of goodness, isn't it? What does it mean to rise to the mode of goodness? Or, yeah, rising to the mode of goodness is very, very important because it's only when we develop the mode of goodness that our consciousness will become mm, clear. We'll develop a clear consciousness. We'll have a peaceful mind. Evam prasanna manaso. The mind will be prasanna. Prasanna means satisfied, peaceful. And of course, Prabhupada explains what is the process. The process, of course, is practicing bhakti, but the process is to uh, adhere to or follow the recommended rules and regulations in the matter of these, the four principles that devotees vow to follow at the time of initiation. Uh, all of the sinful activities are connected with these four regulations. Uh, the more we are in line and rigidly following these four principles, then we become more firmly established in the mode of goodness. And our mind will not be troubling us. Uh, we will have clarity of thought. We will be able to easily adopt or follow the good dictates of our higher intelligence, because intelligence is meant to actually direct or control the mind, which in turn is meant to control the senses. Yeah. So of course that higher intelligence we get especially from uh, Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita. So one who uh, is able to do this, only such a person, therefore, can become situated in the level of what is called vista, isn't it? One will become steady in his devotional activities. One will be enthusiastic. One will be peaceful. And when these are in place, one can then nicely engage in devotional activities. One can develop what is called this service attitude. Prabhupada often speak about the importance of developing proper service attitude. One will be seeking out. One time, devotees asked Prabhupada, "What questions did you ask your Guru Maharaj?" You know, Prabhupada didn't meet very often, didn't have direct association very often. I think less than maybe 5-7 times he met Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. Anyways, when that question was asked to Prabhupada, what question did you ask your Guru Maharaj? Prabhupada said, my only question is how I can serve, what service I can do. That is meant to be, the mood and the mentality of a devotee, because only one who really understands that he's a servant. Jive Swarupoy Krishna Nitya Das. Das, 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 Das. Das and the Das and the Das and the Das. Yeah. Uh, very nice to hear the philosophy, but it's another thing to put it into practice. It can only be put into practice if our consciousness is clear and if our mind is peaceful like that. And then, yes, then we can nicely begin to engage in devotional activities. And it is when we begin to engage in devotional activities that Krishna becomes pleased. Krishna is not happy when we're engaged in sinful activities, obviously. Um, Krishna will begin to reciprocate with those fortunate living entities who come to this position of uh, very uh, with clear intention and strong desire and strong determination, curb um, all of the material attractions that are there in this material world. Come to the mode of goodness, follow these principles strictly, and then one can nicely engage in devotional activity by which Krishna will uh, actually give transcendental knowledge. Transcendental knowledge comes from Krishna when he becomes pleased upon the living entity. So um, this is one of the major outcomes or effects that awaits that fortunate living entity who comes in contact with this knowledge and takes this knowledge seriously in one's life. Mm. Knowing that actually bahunam janmanam ante jnanabamam prapadati vasudeva sarvamiti sa mahatma sudurlabha. Very, very rare to get a human birth, and even more rare uh, to come to know about Vasudeva or Krishna. So the second result or effect when one actually takes up to the process is that he will also be able to transcend the three um, mm, the threefold miseries of life. Isn't it? Adhyatmic, adhibhutic, adhidaivic, flesh. We are always, yeah, especially in this last week, especially 40, 41, 42, 43 degrees Celsius. Today, I think might reach 44. Yeah. Uh, so we are in the world of dualities where there is, uh, in the summertime, excessive heat, especially in Kali Yuga, winter, excessive cold. Mm. Those who are absorbed in their um, activities of devotional service, uh, they are less influenced or disturbed by these uh, threefold mysteries of life. So, in other words, of course, the ultimate or highest benefit for those who actually develop uh, this consciousness is that, and this can take place even in this material world, even while we are having this body, still living in this present body, we can gradually develop our genuine and original love for Krishna. Uh, so, as devotees in Kali Yuga, although this description is given of this mechanical process that previously yogis would follow. It is not necessary for us to mechanically um, uh, practice. Oops, okay, this is Bhagavad Gita. So I'm reading the text again. Let's see. Text 21. And thereafter, the bhakti yogi should push the life air up between the eyebrows, and then blocking the 7 outlets of the life air, he should maintain his aim for going back home, back to Godhead. If he is completely freed from all desires for material enjoyment, he should then reach the cerebral hole and give up his material connection, having gone to the Supreme. So, any questions on this?
Conclusion is that if we receive, if we go to the level of perfection, and we two things are there, two things are happening. One, we transcend the modes, and second, we get clarity, we get the knowledge. Or understanding of
Well, your question is, yes, those who apply the process, they will transcend the modes of material nature. That is one major result, and a very much desired result. Otherwise, we are just entangled in the material world, which means that automatically, yes, one will get full clarity. That is one of the outcomes. Yeah. The other outcome I was mentioning briefly is that one will also transcend the 3-4 miseries of life, isn't it? Which are a constant disturbance, isn't it? We're constantly disturbed by things that are happening to this body, to our mind. We're disturbed by, we allow ourselves, actually. We allow ourselves to be disturbed. But actually, the choice is ours to be disturbed or not to be disturbed, isn't it? There's the example, who is it? Stalin. Stalin, I think, or one of the, I believe it was a Stalin. He was so fixed on his communist philosophy that, constantly meditating on it, he underwent some operation without any anesthesia. I mean, we get a mosquito bite and we become disturbed. So he went through some operation without any medication. So it means that even from a material point of view, we see that sometimes people become so absorbed in some activity that they forget the time. Oh, it was Prashadam time. Most devotees don't forget what time is Prashadam. But one who is even materially very absorbed in something, then other things, he becomes oblivious to his surroundings very often, etc., like that.
yes,
Huh?
yes, have seen experience.
You've seen, yeah.
All these, all the things, eating, sleeping, everything.
Yes. During those who have been students just before exams, you stay up all night because there's an exam the next day, and one can actually do it. You can't do it every day, but occasionally, yeah. So in the Western world, it's called mind over matter. Mind over matter. Yeah, mind is very powerful.
Yes.
And um, if we fix our mind on something, if we learn to develop a very strong mind, then we can conquer over matter. Same principle. Spirit. In the Western world, people don't really understand the difference between mind and spirit. Very often they'll confuse both. Spirit over matter is really the philosophy that by develop consciousness and especially by develop spiritual consciousness. There's material consciousness and spiritual consciousness. Material material consciousness is simply in regards to things that are material and therefore continue our entanglement in the material world. But spiritual consciousness is what liberates us from this entanglement. So therefore, since time immemorial, uh, like this verse in the Bhagavad Gita was explaining, um, since time immemorial, great sages have taken to this process and Param Siddhim, Ito Gataha, have been able to attain the Param Siddhim, the supreme perfection, which for devotees, of course, is returning home back to Godhead. Any other question? Sudama Vikrama? A question? Okay, so we can close for now. Jai Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki
Jai.
Jai Sri Prabhupada ki
Jai.
Gaura Premanande. Actually, yesterday there was one question about there was one question online.
Yes.
That we only came to know after we ended the class. So anyway, the question was whether Sankirtan movement existed in previous yuga, if I recall correctly. So Sankirtan, uh, the chanting of the holy name has always been there, but there's a special feature which has been uh, introduced uh, in this Kali Yuga. This congregational chanting uh, is especially recommended for this age of Kali. But in the Bhagavatam, when it speaks about Narada Muni, uh, Narada Muni, he speaks about his previous lives when discussing with his disciple Srila Vyasadeva. He mentions about that he was previously um, a Gandharva. He was a great singer in Gandharva Loka, Narada Muni. But he made one mistake. He was going around with uh, beautiful women chanting, uh, I guess you could call it Bollywood songs. They were, they were chanting ordinary songs, and um, because Narada Muni in Gandharva Loka, people are uh, very talented. They have beautiful bodies. I mean, and yeah, in the heavenly planets, people have very nice bodies, very attractive bodies, very attractive features, and especially in Gandharva Loka, they're very good singers. In Gandharva Loka, they're very good singers. I think some people from Bali maybe had some connection with Gandharva. Because in Indonesia, they have very good singers. No? They're very good dancers also in Bali. Uh, they, yeah, uh, uh, they're very artistic in many ways. Anyways, coming back to Narada Muni, uh, yeah, uh, he he was he was he was cursed actually to take birth in an ordinary uh, family. I mean, this son of a maidservant because of his offense. So it means that Sankirtan was not only on our planet, but it's also in other planets as well. But uh, but in this Kali Yuga, this congregational chanting is especially recommended for uh, purifying our consciousness and uh, spreading the message of the Lord. Okay, I think we can close. Jai Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki Jai Srila Prabhupada ki Gaurav Manam.